How's it going, guys? Happy Thursday. Yes, an impromptu live stream with an impromptu guest. You probably have seen, heard, read his work, Farzad Misbahi. Go subscribe to his channel, link in the description. How's it going, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for the invite. As always, great to chat with you, talk with you. Just let the bromance continue, bro. Let's go.
It's hilarious because I didn't even plan on going live today. By the way, I see everyone in the chat. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from, city, state, country, whatever you guys feel comfortable sharing. Thanks for coming in on what, like I said, it was a super impromptu stream for me. I was just sitting down at my desk. I came back from a walk and I was like, I want to talk Tesla. I want to talk macro. I want to talk inflation. I want to get the vibe of kind of where we were at in the general market today. So I was like, screw it. Bill O'Reilly, sit down, let's do it live. And then I was thinking about you because you tweeted out that you're actually not going to be going live today after all because of some scheduling. And I was like, let's invite Farzad in and let's get his thoughts as well. So why don't we start with the elephant in the room, and that is inflation. Inflation report came in. I'm going to share my screen here if I can. Present. And inflation came in actually. So came in at 6.5, estimate at 6.5, core coming at 5.7 year over year, and month over month is negative. So we're talking about deflationary or disinflationary, I should say. Well, in this case, it is deflationary because it's negative, but disinflationary on the year to year. What are your thoughts on inflation? It was a good report, albeit it met expectations. The market seemed to kind of sort of not care about it today, finishing pretty much flat on the day across the board. Indexes were green a little bit. Tesla finished, I want to say a little bit in the red, whatever, or 28 basis points getting the green. Who cares? What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it coming in at expectations met my expectations. So we had expectationception a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a variable here that people are waiting for. I think that is, when is CPI or these different markers going to start sort of beating expectations downwards, right? When is there going to be a chance where maybe some of these lagging indicators are starting to turn the table faster than people expect? And I think just what I got away from this report, honestly, it was kind of a non-event for me because it came in at expectations. I mean, literally every single number was nailed on this report. So
Yep.
it looks like folks that are tracking the market are lined up with what is actually coming in. Obviously, I think what this implies is that the Fed, I was on a Twitter space earlier today, literally right before I came on here, where it does seem like this essentially, the market is pricing in almost 100% chance that Fed will raise rates 25 basis points in the next meeting. So that's what the implication
you mean only
is.
25 basis points is
Only
kind of
25. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It seems
right.
like 25 basis points is by almost 100% chance that it's going to be baked in. That's what's going to happen here in the next few weeks. So curious to see what happens. What was your reaction from this report?
Yeah, I mean, given the last 2 or 3 days of green, and surprisingly so to start the year, I mean, and last night getting word that Biden is going to be giving a speech this morning about inflation. Yeah. I was like, okay, so CPI is already in the books. We know it's going to be at least not hotter than expected.
Positive.
So it came in, right? It came in on expectations. Now, I'm not going to be doing victory laps on this just yet, but it's a stepping stone into what I think is imminent, and which is the Fed is going to be pausing. Now, if 25 basis points is the general consensus of what futures are pricing in for next FOMC, I actually think there's a chance that they even pause next meeting. I know it might be premature, but if you look at, and I pulled up this tweet as well from Marco on Twitter. It doesn't have a lot of likes, but I really liked his analysis here. He said, even more important, the 3-month moving average of headline CPI, month over month, unadjusted and then annualized, is 0%. The CPI has been running below the Fed's target since September, and now inflation is non-existent, flirting with deflation. And he presents this chart here. So he takes the last 3 months, finds the average of the headline CPI month over month unadjusted, and you'll see here, really, I mean, and actually he has a really awesome graph below that as well, if I can find it. But he has only a couple of times has this really happened. You talk about, actually, I don't want to move around too much. I'll just show you this for now. It's only really happened if you talk about January 2016, talk about April 2020, And then now we're approaching that sort of level again, that bottoming of CPI unadjusted month over
Mm.
month. So this negative number is not very common. And I predict probably we're going to see another negative month over month print next month.
Mm.
But the big question on everyone's mind is, why is the bonds market pricing in a large amount of cuts for the end of the year? I believe, and someone correct me in the comments if I'm off on this by a little bit, but I think 1.8% is actually priced in to be cut off the Fed funds rate by the end of this year.
No
So
way.
let's just round up, let's say 2%. So someone's wrong here, right? Because the Fed is specifically being hawkish and saying and putting on this facade, and they to be fair, they should, right? Because we don't want people to jump the gun on this and then inflation to rear its ugly head again. But the market is not pricing in the Fed's fund rate to stay as high as it is right now, or even with the 25 basis point hike to the end of this year. It's saying no, this is going to come down. And whether that's a recession that has to happen in between, which I think is going to happen given the yield spread inversion that's happening, something has to give here. And I just feel like we're waiting for that something to pop up. I don't know what that's going to be though.
So let me make sure I say back what you said, because I want to make sure I understand this. So you're saying that there is a chance that the bond market is pricing in the Fed actually reducing rates by 1.8% by the end of the year versus where they would be where they are now?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Or
I'll pull
okay,
up the spread later. I don't have it handy, but
sure,
I was. Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah, if I was actually watching some content on Meet Kevin's channel about this, and he was pulling up some Bloomberg charts that he has with the bond pricing and what the Fed
Okay,
fund rate target is, and yeah, if you look at the pricing of what futures are pricing in, there are cuts being priced into this year and specifically next year. Um, so yeah,
okay.
there's some philosophical exercise there, I think, to be
I
had.
mean, I got to tell you what's really encouraging about this whole thing is that, we can talk about the Fed all we want. Like generally, I do feel like I still to this day, I don't understand. Like I know what the Fed does, but like the whole structure of the Fed is a completely different conversation. The fact that we're at the point now where we are pretty comfortable in saying that the month over month inflation data is negative, meaning that prices are not increasing and in the best case scenario are decreasing month over month now, I think is a very positive sign. A lot of people will sit down and say, well, no, this is there's different variables that are impacting this, energy prices or whatever. That's whatever it is. It's coming down. Prices are coming down on the whole. Now, what I'm curious to track is, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this if you have any, isn't Q1 typically a much softer quarter than Q4? And the way I think about this is Q4 typically, if you look at many different sectors, you have the holidays coming up. You have, people are spending a lot of money towards the end of the year. All these promotions are happening. You have a lot of things happening towards the end of the year in the US economy that really stimulates spending. And then Q1 is typically quite soft. So if I use the auto market as an example, the
Mm-hmm.
Q1 for the auto market is by far the worst quarter. And then you have, there's a bunch of different data sets around the auto market that we can talk about if you like. But it seems
Yeah.
like deflation is really going to take hold in Q1. And I wonder what kind of message that's going to send to the Fed, or if it's already baked into how the Fed's thinking about this, right? So they're saying, you know what, we're comfortable raising 25 basis points, even though we know Q1 is going to be a significantly softer quarter than Q4, which will make deflation entrenched. I don't know if you want to use that word or not, right? How do you think about that? Do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think this is going to change any of the sort of outlook of how people are thinking about this? Is it already part of the equation? What do you think?
I mean, that's why we look at year over year numbers when we're talking about general inflation being the case, right? Because we wanna be comparing, excluding for seasonality coming in. So, um, by the way, we don't have to get into this right now, but yeah, I still think obviously Tesla does. I think Tesla still grows substantially in Q1 versus their Q4 that they just had, but a different story. But I think the 25 basis point is kind of like a it's kind of like a last kiss goodbye. It's like
Mm.
It's like goodbye,
The
honey. I'm
rose,
leaving.
you give him the rose and you walk away.
I'm leaving for the war. The train's going away. It's like that last little hand touch as the train moves off, right? That's the 25 basis point of
It's Titanic.
what
It's what's her face just letting Leo just kind of like goodbye.
mm, mm. Now, I haven't watched Titanic, so I have no idea. I haven't
Oh
watched any
my
of these
God.
movies.
Chat,
I know.
please
I know.
tell
I
Yashu
know. I didn't
what
want
he
to admit
needs
it,
to
but
do.
I feel like everyone knows this about me. I haven't seen any freaking movies at all. I have no
Oh
idea what
my
you're talking
God.
about.
All right.
Anyways, the only references I get are with the FMC. How lame.
Wow. You
Okay.
just shook my world up. Go ahead.
Kevin said more like a last slap in the face. So,
Yeah,
so
for
this
real.
is that's actually so this is where I worry because yes, it's good. Inflation's coming down. Let's say everyone's happy and everyone's already prematurely partying, which I don't think we should be just yet. And I'll get to that in a second. But I already think they've over tightened. And I actually think last meeting, that larger rate hike that they had, the one prior, even was iffy for me, but specifically the last one, I think they've officially over tightened the last one, and they're over the mark of margin of error. Now, where's the spillover effect? Is the way I look at this now. Housing is that again, it's the elephant in the room, has been in the elephant in
Disaster.
the room. It's the real big question, right? Because if housing turns over and everyone and their mom thinks housing is going down, if that happens and it continues to go down, is probably the best way to put it. Then what happens to equities as people's what happens to stock as people's equity in their homes declines, or if they have line of credits out, which they're already potentially hurting on with the interest rate hikes that are happening. So that's the big elephant in the room I'm looking at this year, and specifically not I should say not systemically. It's not an '08 thing, at least I think that's happening, but it's the big question. It's the last big domino. And I'd be curious to get everyone else's thoughts on this and
Yeah.
as well in the chat. But how do you see that, like with the over tightening?
That's such a great point because anecdotally, this is anecdotal from sort of the people that I talk to, and I try to grab signals from what's actually happening out there. So if I look at my surrounding area for housing, it is basically at a standstill. Nobody's really buying homes. I have a friend who works for DR Horton, and he's sort of telling me about the homes that he does sell are things that he closed 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and these are homes where people are putting zero down because they don't have the cash. And they're for example, one of the anecdotal things I have is that it's a $650,000 house where they have a $4,500 mortgage. Now in Vancouver, that's probably not bad, but $650,000 house, $4,500 mortgage basically implies zero down at like 7 point whatever percent mortgage. Okay,
Crazy.
this doesn't include property taxes or anything like that. So
Yeah.
okay, so that seems weird. And we're going into a phase where nobody's really buying houses. So that's one. Number two, the car market is also a hot mess, right?
Hmm.
Much less people are buying cars, especially in an environment where in 2022 we had empty lots starting the year. And then we have the lots at or above healthy supplies at the end of the year. And automakers are selling less in 2022 versus 2021 with less supply chain challenges or little to no supply chain challenges. So what does that imply? That implies that people are buying way less cars from these lots. And the cars that they are buying at are record car payments. So people are literally
Hmm.
paying $1,000 a month for just, for a car. $1,000 a month. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's two. And then
People,
and then now
people have
go ahead.
been doing that for a long time though. So
That's
there's
true.
people, right? It's not a
Fair
unique
enough.
thing.
Fair enough. But we're kind of like raising up like it's whereas maybe $900 a month now it's $1,000 a month. But fair enough. People love buying
Hmm.
cars. Period. Buying cars is a very American thing. But
Right.
then you also have this environment where more and more companies are laying off workers, especially in the tech sector. So
Hmm.
you're introducing more supply to the labor market, right? You're introducing
Hmm.
more supply to the labor market. What does that imply? That implies that people that are looking for work are not going to have more competition between each other, and then the people hiring are not going to be in this case where they're like, oh my God, I have to keep this. They basically they're not throwing out money at people to come work for them. Now they have a larger pool that are going to be willing to work. And of course, you
Yeah.
could say, well, this is kind of around the tech sector, but tech people make a lot of money. And a lot of these people drive the economy in some way. It's not like 10% of it, but it's a significant portion of it. So you have these three things happening from what I've seen so far that are very much deflationary forces, very large deflationary forces. And as we know, when the Fed makes a decision around the rates, it takes a few months for this thing to bake, to kind of take hold of the market to become entrenched. And this is part of the reason why the three things that I outlined are a direct result of the Fed doing their thing, and so at least most of them are. And so by the time summer comes, I'm just curious to see if we're going to be in a situation where um, way less people than last year have cash on hand to make their purchases. The housing market is at a standstill. The car market is has cratered, and then you have way less people, not way less people, there are less people with jobs than we had last year. What kind of environment does that set up for the economy? I just don't see how this doesn't put us in a recessionary environment where people are afraid for what's going to come, and that they're not going to be able to, sort of find a job or buy things because they don't have enough money. Now, the pro is that the Fed can, like they've said in the past, we'd rather over tighten than over lessen, and make sure inflation is completely nipped in the butt and it goes nowhere. And now, once we have signals that inflation is nothing we have to worry about, then we'll cut the rates and then we'll stimulate the economy that way. But then you have this war path for the last 6 to 9 months that you've laid out, that where people are being impacted, and you have individuals that are being impacted, and it's just, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen. So that's how I think about it. I think there's going to be a lot of fear in some sectors where people will kind of vocalize, myself included, around the auto market. I see a lot of signs that are very, very concerning, not necessarily for Tesla, but for the broader auto market. And I think these are going to get louder and louder the more we get into the summertime. And that could force potentially the Fed to be a little bit more dovish in their language, that says, hey, we are aware that people are hurting out there. We'll make sure that we're not being too restrictive, and we'll open up the floodgates when needed. But then if you have automakers like GM and Ford and Volkswagen and all these automakers that are going to be suffering in sales as well, could those people start pushing the administration to say, yo, come on, like stimulate, like we can't sell the cars. Our dealers are full. Our dealers are yelling at us. We literally don't have anywhere else to put these cars. It's going to be a fascinating thing to watch.
But so specifically the car loan thing, I mean, yes, it makes a difference on the bottom line, but don't you think the interest rate on people's car loans make a difference? But is it really that's the main reason? I think the general question is what you said before, that is are people confident in their income sources, their jobs and whatnot, to be able to buy new cars? So it's, I look at last year, 2022. Can't believe I'm saying last year. It feels crazy that year's over. Last year was all about the market looking at inflation and saying, holy shit, inflation is getting out of control. Screw these multiples that we're paying. And so they started driving down multiples off of stocks and looking at inflation and saying the Fed is going to be increasing rates. And now that the Fed has increased rates, and arguably so is on the way down eventually, at least pausing soon enough, maybe holding here for a little bit longer than people expect. Now it's all about, how does this affect earnings for companies now? Because last year was all about multiples. This year is all about earnings. Now the question is, how bad does the economy get? And which specific sectors, auto being one of them, out disproportionately so, but which specific companies, even within that industry, are going to be disproportionately hurt when it comes to this economy? And if there's one thing we know from recessions, it's that they accelerate technological change. They accelerate innovation. They accelerate entrepreneurship in an ugly way. No one wants to see recessions happen. No one wants to see all the side effects of that. However, they do accelerate technological change. And the big question for this recession that we couldn't really ask in 08, 09, and of course, COVID recession technically happened, but it wasn't long enough, is how much of EV proliferation do we see in this recession? because of cost savings. I think it was Brent from ARK Invest. He had a really awesome tweet out with a chart of Toyota Camry ownership and Toyota and Model 3 ownership
Yeah.
over a 5-year span, 50,000 miles per year, whatnot, and the cost was a wash for a 5-year ownership off of a new Camry versus a Model 3, even at the prices that we're at right now. So it's the year of the earnings, and you have to look for, I think, companies that, and we can talk about Tesla here in a second, that we think earnings are not going to be disproportionately affected come this recession. And shout out Ethan becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate it.
All right, Ethan.
But thoughts on my ramble?
No, I love it. I think that's dead on. On the Twitter space I was on before this one, I mean the key takeaway I took is that in a recession and sort of this market dynamic that we're in, it's a stock pickers sort of environment where you're not really trying to identify whole sectors or like, oh, this is going to do great, tech's going to do great. It's like, okay, which specific companies actually have the execution, the management, the product, the demand, the supply, the pricing power, the economies of scale, the contracts that are going to allow them to make money when it's not clear what's going to happen. It's that simple. And there are a lot of shining stars when you think about it that way. Apple, Costco, Tesla, right? There are certain names you can pick out that are very well positioned to do well regardless of what happens. I think, yeah, I mean, honestly, what you said is it's just the way you thought about it is perfect, and that's how I would lay on top of it is like just individual stocks will shine. The question becomes what's a fair multiple for that company? I have no idea. That's where it's like this is a I almost want to say it's completely out of my expertise because is this a technical thing where people are like, well, in a recession when a company's earning I don't know, they have low debt and they have 17 to 20% net income percent and they're still going to be growing 30 to 40% year over year, they deserve a 25 PE in a recessionary environment. Okay.
Right.
That's whatever. But that's besides the point. The way I look at it is it seems like Tesla specifically is incredibly well positioned to survive whatever happens. And I think looking at the recent things that have happened with the company around some of the pricing levers they pulled and how quickly they're able to stir up demand just by saying, okay, we're just going to pass on X percentage onto the customer to spur demand. I think it's a huge signal that says in an environment where demand is a question, the companies with pricing power win. And in the auto sector, I don't know who else has pricing power outside of Tesla. Even if BYD is able to grow at their current prices, they're still 5% margin. Even if Ford can, try to survive, actually Ford's a terrible example because they don't make money on EVs and their gas cars are coming down, right? So forget legacy automakers. It's all about the EV cycle that's coming up. And the one thing that I always hear from a lot of bears, which I understand, is that, hey, Tesla, the car market is cyclical. The car market is cyclical. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have an area where, like 08, 09, what was the cycle? People loved big cars. People loved the Hummer. People loved to spend gas on SUVs and crap. What happened? Nobody had money. So what did the car market do? It steered towards what people were looking for, which is cheap, economical hybrids, like the Prius and compact cars that basically people didn't have to spend a lot of money on because they were broke. Okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. So now we're doing another cycle. It's like, okay, well, we've reached the cycle. People are not, that's why pickup trucks are down. That's why SUVs are down. We're just entering a different cycle. Okay, very good. So what's the next cycle? I don't know how it's not EVs. I don't see any other cycle that's going to, what's the other segment that's going to come up that's going to replace that? And so what companies are positioned to do
plug-in
that?
hybrids. Plug-in hybrids.
Plug-in hybrids. Apparently.
You already know how it is with the bill. So I mean, this is my fear: is the plug-in hybrids are going to take over the general market sentiment around.
They're definitely incentivized to. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy because if you look at studies, people don't even plug these things in. They don't care about the battery, the whatever 6 kilowatt or whatever battery pack that there is in here. They don't really care for that. They just use it for the regen, and then they go, yeah, screw it. Let's just treat it like a gas car. And just selfishly speaking, why would I want to buy a hybrid if I'm still gonna have to pay for oil changes, tune-ups, maintenance on the engine? If I'm gonna go electric, I should go fully. At least that was my rationale because I'm not gonna have to pay for all this maintenance. So yeah, and not to mention labor costs are so high. You know, if someone's had a recent car maintenance or whatever, throw in the chat how much you paid for it. I bet you it's been a lot higher in the last little bit than it's been pre-COVID, and these labor costs are not coming down. I do find it ironic though that the administration is doing victory laps around saying employment is the lowest ever when first no one really trusts those metrics anyways, and second of all unemployment's down, I should say, because people are having to pick up more jobs to pay for inflation.
It's crazy.
It's right, that's what's happening here. So
It's politics.
Yeah, what's that?
It's politics. I mean, that's how it
Yeah.
works. You know, it's like you take whatever the smallest data point that makes you electable for the next cycle, and then they run with it. It doesn't matter what the context is or what caused it. If number look good, it for me. That's how politics works. You know.
Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
And by the way, people should go check out Farzad's Twitter as well about signing the petition to get some of these, like the Jeep Wrangler EV with a small battery. It's the Wrangler, right? With a little battery
the Wrangler 4xe. It has a 21-mile electric range and 20 miles per gallon equivalent, and it gets a $7,500 tax credit for EVs. That makes sense.
And the Model Y 5-seater.
The Model Y 5-seater doesn't.
Yeah. So I encourage everyone to go on your Twitter, and you probably have it pinned or something, I think, on your Twitter, right?
Top of my account. Yeah, thank you for plugging that. Yeah, we can still make change if you're a U.S. citizen. We can still make change.
Right. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I signed it, but
good. They don't need to know.
I'm not a U.S. citizen.
You're an honorary U.S. citizen.
So, okay, I'll take that. As long as I don't have to pay taxes. Where does everything stand with that? Because as it stands right now on Tesla's website, there is no mention of the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits. Everyone's confused if people are people getting the $7,500, are people not? Where does everything stand with that? And is there a fear here for quarter 1 that we're going to see subdued demand, not just because of macro, but because people want clarity on this issue prior to them making a decision to go EV prior to quarter 2 coming in?
Fantastic question. So where we are with it right now, you identify as a U.S. citizen. Oh boy, now we're getting spicy. So where we are is that let me just give an update on the petition, if you don't mind, just to kind of bring that up.
You want to share your screen?
Is that possible?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Look at this. My God, 2023. Oh my God, I got the freaking.
I know, it's over, man.
Okay, so we started a petition to fix the Inflation Reduction Act. We're actually at 55,000 signatures. That's freaking awesome. So I'm very happy about that. So 55,000 signatures there. If you do go to my Twitter account, you can pull this up, and we also have instructions on how to deal, what to do. There's still an open window to reach out to not your representative, but the IRS to change the rules. I have it right there. So sign the petition, send an email, and then if you go to my website, I also have a pre-written email you can send to the IRS that directly impacts this bill that was written by ChatGPT, FYI, and it did a really good job. So all that information's there. Now, where we are as far as the impact to demand. So this is a great question. So what are the cars that are most impacted by this right now is the Tesla Model Y. This is a website created by, what's the person's name? I think Matt Jung, where they track the live inventory in the US for Tesla cars, okay? If I pull up the inventory data for new existing in an inventory Model Y, okay? Big spike. And where did this spike happen? So there was an initial spike in December 21st. If you remember at that point, Tesla's like $7,500 credit. Boom.
Yeah.
Literally in 3 days. And this is why I say like demand's not a problem if you hit the right prices. Gone.
Right.
They just basically clear the inventory and it's gone. But ever since January 4th, which is when people come back from vacation and they end their long holidays and Tesla starts kicking into high gear, you have this pretty big increase in inventory for Tesla. So huge increase. So what's obviously happening here, and we can look at other models as well, right? So if I go to Model 3, new and existing inventory, not as high, That's because the Model 3, there are certain versions that seem like they qualify. Plus, it's a cheaper car, right? But it's dubious uh, what car gets the EV tax credit and what doesn't. It's obviously impacting Tesla's ability to clear their lots, obviously. So there is a chance. There is a chance that if Tesla doesn't, there's a chance that if the IRS doesn't fix their rule set to make it obvious that these cars that should get it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and Tesla doesn't decide to do anything from a pricing perspective, there's a chance these cars don't move, and or they move at a much lower rate than they should, because Tesla still has a pretty high price on that Model Y, which starts at 64,000, and then if the IRA is saying nah, but we'll give it to the Wrangler hybrid, we'll give it to the Ford Escape hybrid, we'll give it to the BMW X5 hybrid, the Audi Q5 hybrid, and all these other cars, apples to apples, these couldn't move. Now, there is a variable that also says like maybe people are just waiting to know for sure if it's going to get
Right.
it or not. And that in itself should spur some demand because people are like, okay, well, even if they don't give it to them, I'm going to buy it. But theoretically, they're doing that anyway, right? So these are people that clearly want the discount and they're not sure if they can get it. So now, if the IRS doesn't pass it and Tesla decides to lower their price, then theoretically there's a price in there that they can hit so that it clears the lot, but that obviously comes at a probably a pretty significant margin impact in the U.S. So
Hmm.
that's where we're at today, and we should watch it very closely. Now, as far as clearing the lots, I do think Tesla should be able to clear the lots pretty quickly. Like say March 1st comes around, so that window to put in your certainly your comments to the IRS to fix the IRS tax credit,
Right.
it could March 1st, they could say, yeah, okay, never mind, it's included. I don't think
Right.
Tesla's going to have a problem clearing the lots because, they'll just be like, everybody will be like, oh, crap, I can buy my car. Dealerships are going to be overrun, but they'll get them out. They'll get them out. So we'll see. It's just a matter of, is it going to impact Tesla's margins or is it not? If the IRS includes the Model Y, I don't think there's going to be a margin impact. If it doesn't include the Model Y, there will be a margin impact.
Now, by the way, this website's great, but it doesn't go back that far, I believe. I think the max might be 3 or 4 months. So
I think
there's
it's
no way
90
to
days.
get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think someone in the comments is saying, can we go year to date and see what an estimate is
Mm.
over last? So no, I don't think we can. But this time
October
next year,
20th.
October 20th is the first day. So shout out to the person that made this site. Per Johan is asking, thank you for the super chat, my friend. How is it possible that what cars get the tax credit was not sorted out last year already?
Government, baby. So that's it. I mean, it's not a priority. This is a perfect example of that. Typically speaking, and I'm not saying government is bad, but government is much slower than the private sector on average. Much, much slower. And also much more corrupt. But let's not talk about that this time, right? So it's one of those things where it's just a matter of waiting for the IRS to finish their process of this sort of EV tax credit to know where we're at. Now, to their defense, they did say towards the end of last year that, hey, we're going to need more time, but here's our list, and we'll open up for comments to get feedback. And obviously, Elon's not happy. When I made the tweets around it, he replied to my tweet saying messed up. GM, I know for a fact, is lobbying government to try and get this thing applied to the Lyric, to the Cadillac. I think it's a Cadillac Lyric. That doesn't get it. That should. You have the Ford Mustang Mach-E at the top two trims. That doesn't get it because it's not an SUV, but it is. So it should. So automakers are just like, what's going on? Like, we're confused. It's just that Tesla, the very incorrect incentives that the bill is doing is impacting Tesla the most. And then you layer on the IRS's just lack of capability to do this timely and to do this fairly, in my opinion. And that's why we're here, where we are now. And it is impacting Tesla's ability to clear their lots, clearly.
It's going to feed into the demand questions and concerns that everyone has, because then now it's going to be one of those things where at the end of the quarter we look at the deliveries and we go, well, if there was clarity on this, we'd probably have sold this much more. But again, it just kicks the ball further down the road. It kicks the can further down the road of the addressing those concerns. No.
So I don't think it's necessarily a demand question. I think it's going to be a question around margins, because I do believe Tesla will I think this spike in inventory is temporary. It's just a
Okay.
matter of, will the IRS enable Tesla to take advantage of the credit fairly, or is Tesla going to get screwed over and they're going to be like, you know what, screw it, we're going to get the price right to the customer so that so the customer can feel like they're paying a fair price for the car compared to other vehicles that are unfairly getting the credit in comparison to the Model Y. And at that point, Tesla eats it. Right at that point, Tesla's like, okay, we will carry this burden of unfairness by lowering our prices so that you can purchase the car. And this goes back to the pricing power equation. Even if the government screws over Tesla in this respect, Tesla has enough margins to generate demand and they can still make money. Now, obviously, not as much as they could if they were treated fairly, but they can still make money. But it does impact earnings. And so the question becomes, how much do earnings get impacted? So the demand is that the units moved is not a question. It's what is the bottom line that Tesla's going to be able to generate?
So you're saying they're going to be you're thinking at least in the U.S. a price reduction is coming this quarter.
If the IRS doesn't fairly tag the Tesla vehicles, yes, I do believe so.
But we're not going to know that, right? By March. And even by March,
We might.
that's when the but that's when so March 1st, I believe, right? That's the deadline to submit your concerns. Come on, does anything happen in the government within a month? Like I feel like these concerns are going to go in a black box. Maybe a month and a half, 2 months later, we might get another revised revision on a bill or something like that. But I'm not sure if we're going to see much in terms of news out of this until after the first quarter. Very
Maybe.
minimum.
I mean, that's a chance. I do think I have to look this up again, but I do believe that there is, and I agree with Per Johan for sure. Um, I believe that the IRS gave guidance that they will have this figured out by the end of Q1, and that open comment period, they would gather information as it goes through, and then once it's closed, they would have a decision sometime soon thereafter. Because I believe the administration. So Peter Manchin is the guy that sort of is heading this bill in the House or in Congress. That was a big part of this thing getting put together, and somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think the full expectation is that by the end of Q1, this will get figured out. And here's the deal. If they don't, there's going to be way too much pressure from automakers to get them to figure this out because their gas cars ain't coming back. Their gas volumes ain't coming back during tough economic times. And these guys are already suffering. So if you're already adding additional variables that are going to confuse the customer to know if they're going to get a credit or not, that's going to impact them incredibly badly because they already can't sell the cars they're making money on, and now they're stuck with cars that they can't even sell, right? So it's a huge problem. I think there'll be too much pressure on the government to get this figured out because it's not just a Tesla problem, it's an everybody problem. It's just Tesla's being unfairly impacted disproportionately. So yeah.
It will, but do you not agree with me that this could easily go into quarter two, even quarter three, with all the back and forth revisions of what happens on
I don't think
something
so.
like this? Because
My gut tells me this
yeah,
gets figured out end of Q1.
so okay, so let's assume that happens into Q1.
Mhm.
So going into Q2, that's fine. So quarter one, you don't look at quarter one and go, okay, well, in North America, Tesla unit volumes are going to suffer based on
It
this.
might.
And
Yeah, no, for sure. So when I say no demand issue, I mean like for the rest of the year, like the timing of it might be off by a few weeks, but it's just a question of when can Tesla pull the pricing lever, either enabled by the tax credit or by Tesla. There could be a situation that the IRS says waits until April 1st, or
yeah,
let's use the worst case scenario, July 1st, right? And then everybody is in limbo for 2 quarters. Like
hmm
that situation doesn't seem I mean, who knows? Who
I don't
knows?
know, man. This is government we're
All right,
talking about. Like these
fine.
guys, by the time July comes
You're right.
around, it's gonna be summer. It's gonna be summer vacation time. You might as well kick the
You're
can
right.
to the fall. And then when the fall comes, might be some other election that they're. So,
But but think
yeah, go
about
ahead.
this though. Like, I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there
No,
is
yeah.
there is a variable where if the economy is not going to be as rosy as we think it is, and these automakers are going to be between a rock and a hard place, don't you think that the same automakers that the administration is very pro of, those union administrations, are going to be freaking out because they already can't sell the cars they have, and there's no
Mm,
clarity on the cars that they could sell, like the Mach-E and the Lyric and all these ones that could
mhm.
like push government to get this through. How do you think about
But
that?
dude, how many are how many of the Mach-E's are they really selling? Like,
That's fair.
you know,
Yeah.
like yes,
I don't know,
yes,
man.
long term, totally agree with you, right? Because
Yeah,
yes, they're gonna need some sort of margin enhancement. But do they care for a quarter or two? Like these guys don't care, man. Like these guys, how many of the lyrics are actually going to be made, right? Maki's
4.
probably the only one. Yeah, and the Maki's the only one where I'm like, okay, yeah, they're going to do at least substantial, relatively speaking, not
That's
to
fair.
Tesla, but they're going to do decent volume on the Maki. But like, I mean, how much of that? Like, by the way, the Mach-E does is not even profitable. Probably, if you talk about on an operating level for these companies yet, and that's
Yeah,
really the
for
question
sure.
with the right. So maybe it is barely. I don't know. Right? You can't really devise that out, but that's at least the going theory. But dude, like these guys, the government can easily drag this out, and they're not going to get pressure in the short term, I believe.
Let me be devil's advocate. So what happens in
Okay,
starting Q1 2023 with Ford? They start reporting out the blue business separately, right? So what they're
okay.
calling Ford Blue versus Ford Legacy. I forget what the hell they call it. So they're going to start reporting out the EV business separately from the gas business. I
Ford
really
is
think Ford is, yeah. So they're going to break them out. They're going to have two segments because they're preparing. They know the gas business is going away and their electric business is going to be taking over. So they're going to be
right,
incentivized to show really good numbers for the EV business. And Ford is a UAW company, a union company, and UAW is a big supporter of Biden. You don't think Ford is going to be like, dude, we're going to start reporting this segment of the company. People are going to be able to see that we're not selling any cars. You got to give us clarity on the Mach-E. You have to. It's our highest volume vehicle in this segment. You can't put people like in this weird situation where they're not going to know if the top two trims are not eligible when they're SUVs. I think
uh,
that's one piece of it, but I can understand why you'd
you
be
know,
wrong about why you think that's not the case.
yeah, obviously you think I'm wrong. It's okay, but but dude, I still look at it this way. The supply that they have is still their concern. Their constraint is not, let's face it, any EV well built today will find a buyer for that EV. So I really don't think Mach-E, it's like, oh, like I don't think Ford's at a point with their volumes yet where they're like too worried to find a buyer for their car, even at a loss, because or even at a premium price, I should say, because they're at that level of like niche still where it's like if you don't like Teslas, it's a very nice car to want to buy, and you're gonna find a buyer even though you're paying 10,000 more, whatever thousand more for the Mach-E, right? So I don't think they're at the unit volumes yet where they're really concerned with that just yet. But whereas I look at Tesla and I go, okay, if we don't get clarity on this thing, North American sales probably for let's say the Model Y, a large amount of volume there, probably going to suffer unless Tesla lowers the price and says we're going to lower it, and then once and if this gets included, we'll raise it back up, and the net cost will be the same to you as a consumer. So that's just what I'm like toying with right now is like, do we see a price cut, especially with the inventory levels that are going up? I think this is a short term question, and you and I both know all it really takes is some level of data showing, and everyone's going to jump on it for in terms
Yeah,
of
no,
demand
you're
concerns
right.
for the money.
I will give you this. I think it's definitely a risk for sure. 100%. It's definitely a risk. My gut tells me that again, this is my probably too optimistic, have too much hope. Otherwise I wouldn't have put this stupid bill together to try like this change.org thing together and try to like move it forward so that we can actually have some change, maybe very naively. But I'm still
By
gonna
the way,
try
that's not
because
what I'm.
it's
I'm not trying
no,
to
I
hate
know
on
that.
the. I'm not trying to hate on the
I know you're
bill.
not.
I'm just
I know you're
questioning the
not.
timing. The timing is the big
100%.
one.
Yeah, I got you. No, what I'm telling you is like, is I have to be optimistic. I have to be optimistic because otherwise that is what that optimism is what made me want to put this whole analysis together in a video series and a change.org thing petition together because I felt like there was an opportunity to really make change quickly. Um, but you are probably right. And it's just a matter of seeing how it plays out in the short term. But again, like you said, it's a short term. It will
Right.
at some point the nebulous, dubious thing will get figured out, and
Mhm.
and then we'll move forward. And again, that's the solution is does Tesla reduce prices and take hit on the margin, or
Mhm.
does the IRS do the right thing and allow the Model Y in all trims to receive the tax credit so that they can
Mm.
actually move forward?
And I really hope I'm wrong. I hope March 1st comes around. The next day they have a revision on this bill. I just, It's just, I guess with timing and government, I'm just not, in general, it doesn't matter what, I had someone in the
Yeah.
comments say, what do you know? You're Canadian, which is true. But, I think governments in general in all places operate in a certain way. So,
That's fair.
but everyone should go vote on that bill on the change.org link I threw into the comment section as well. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Cindy's also asking, Farzad, have you been to a Tesla store since Jan 1 to see what the salespeople are advising regarding this?
That's a great question. So I haven't personally been, but I have heard other people that have talked to people that were, people that have talked to people. So right now, it's not just a Tesla thing, but it does seem like across many different automakers, there's a dubious nature to what's going on. The general message they're giving is that we're still waiting to see what the IRS's full guidance is. We think we'll get it by the end of the quarter. We will let you know if something were to happen. You're obviously more than welcome to purchase your car. If obviously they do say that it can get the credit, you will obviously be able to file that in your tax credit. But until then, we just don't really know what to say because we're waiting for the IRS to finish up their guidance. So, the IRS being slow on this is 100% weighing on Tesla and others to be able to sell
Mhm.
vehicles. 100%.
And are you at all surprised that Elon/Tesla hasn't been more outspoken on this, or are you not surprised? I have a take on this,
Well,
but I'll let you start.
the two things that have happened like in the last week is that Elon was quite he did jump on every time I made a tweet about it. Messed up. This is messed up. Electric wrote an article with like instructions on what to do, and people asked people to write in the comment. So maybe in his head is like, well, I've activated the force to get going, and now we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens once the window is closed, and we can put pressure. The other thing could be too is that there was a report where Elon went to he visited with Biden recently, I think a week or two. They went to like a summit, and he was speaking to the administration at least. So maybe that was a topic of discussion that came up.
Wait, really? Did
I
I
can't
miss that?
remember if it
I
was.
might have missed it.
Maybe I'm misremembering. Somebody in the comments correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have sworn
Hmm.
that recently, like this year, he went to the White House and spoke to somebody with other automakers
Okay.
on the EV thing. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it was an old article that was relinked that got me or whatever. But I'll try to search for it after
No
the
worries.
live
No worries.
stream.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of where my head is at. Where's yours?
So basically, yeah. So you're like, he's activated the forces. Fair.
Yes.
That's fair. Now, am I surprised that Tesla and Elon are not more outspoken about this? Initial gut reaction is yes. I look at this and I'm like, why? If you talk about the level of tweets we get from Elon or Tesla account, or even Tesla account for aside for a second, even Elon on Twitter issues, and then we balance that out with how many tweets we've had, a couple of replies to you, and great job with that to push this change. It's really like it's like a very skewed balance of tweets that we've had. But the more I think about it, I am not surprised actually. And the reason is, why would Elon ever want to put himself out there to look like he's looking for handouts from the government? It's like this narrative that Tesla and Elon have been trying to rid of for so long. It makes sense the more I thought about it that, okay, Elon's not going to be pushing this narrative in and of himself. He might enable people that are pushing this narrative for the end consumer. But if it comes off too much like Elon is pushing for another handout, even though that's not the case here, I think that's where he's probably saying, okay, I'm going to step back and let the community do the talking, is what I think.
Interesting. So it's optics, right? It's
I
optics
think
of
so.
him. You know what's also interesting? He did go on the record. There's a tweet of him saying that says, again, taken out of context technically, because this is a very different scenario that we're in, where Tesla doesn't need the tax credit. Tesla doesn't need the tax credit, right? But when we're not sure if it's able to get the tax credit is what's causing all this freaking confusion. Because they don't need it, but if everybody else gets it and they don't, then you automatically are at a disadvantage. So you
Yeah.
don't need it when it's fair, but maybe you need it when it's unfair, right? Because that's what would make it fair. That could be part of it. That could be part of it. The other part of it could be too is like they just know that they can clear the lots very quickly. Maybe they have enough demand to be kind of happy with where it's going. Or this is a very bearish scenario. Maybe they're getting signals that say even if this EV tax credit kicks in, people are just not buying, and I don't buy that. But maybe that could be a worst case scenario. It's like, you know what? It's just it is what it is. We're gonna have to wait for it. But that doesn't make any sense because $2,500 credit, that's a huge discount. So they would have it,
Well,
especially
they
because they did it at the end of the year and they cleared the inventory.
Well,
So
that's the thing is they would know
yeah,
internally from the run rate they had in the last two
yeah,
weeks with the $7,500 discount how hot this of a promotion this is. They would already
yeah,
know if this is a hit or miss for them and at what run rate. Albeit it might be a little bit accelerated because it's the end of the year, tax year, and people want to, capitalize costs for their business, whatever, and they want to buy vehicles up. I don't know. But it's the last 2 weeks. They would know, okay, if this bill did get passed for this model, this is where our run rate might be for sales. But yeah, no, I think it's would I welcome Tesla Twitter account publishing more about this? Perhaps, but I guess the optics is that they're trying to keep it to the kind of the straight and narrow, no complaining. It is what it is. Let the other people complain, whether it's us in the community, consumers, or Legacy Auto. Which, by the way, I'm not
yeah.
sure if Ford or GM have publicly come out and said anything about this. Have they?
There was an article about the GM, the Lyric. So there was an article about the Lyric not getting the tax credit. I haven't heard anything from Ford. I have heard of reports of Ford dealerships being confused because of the sort of the trims for the Mustang. So,
Hmm.
but the only one I know of that there were reports where the auto manufacturer is trying to drum up some noise is GM with their Lyric, the Cadillac Lyric.
Hmm. And it makes sense, but if I'm Legacy Auto and I look at my EV playlist and I go, you're telling me I can have an excuse in a recessionary year not to produce and sell as many of these loser cars for us that we probably should? Great, I'll take that excuse. That's why I push back on the idea of like they need
Yeah,
this.
I
It's a
could see it.
convenient excuse.
Yeah,
So
I could see it.
we'll see. But
It
it
plays
is
in their
January
favor in
12th.
like a very like dark way, right? Because it does slowing down Tesla removes the number of cars that could be bought versus their competition. That maybe
Mm,
they will look for a hybrid instead. Maybe they will get that Wrangler 4XC, which I don't see why. But
mm,
I think in the end, though, what's really key a key point here though is that from a product perspective, the for a serious shopper to go in and compare the Model Y versus a
yeah.
competitor hybrid and come out and say the hybrid car is a better situation for me than the Model Y, I feel like that situation is few and far between. If a shopper gets into a Model Y versus an Audi Q5 or a BMW X5 and they're looking for a good value bang for your buck that's comfortable, easy to live with, has a charging network, because they want to move towards EVs. I don't see how the Tesla loses. I just don't see it. I'm biased, but I don't see it. So the question
Yeah, we're
becomes how
biased, of
many,
course, but
yeah. So how many of those dynamics, how common is that dynamic? So I like to think that Tesla's product in the end always wins, but when you create confusion about how much it actually costs, I'm not surprised. People are like, I don't know. I don't know what's
someone
happening.
says software, right? This is a huge one that I think is missed with Tesla. I recommend everyone to go test drive another EV and tell me that their software is better than a Tesla. The way that and don't get me wrong, Tesla the Tesla computer screen, iPad, if you want to call it, does have problems. But
Yeah.
it's like my iPhone having problems. It's gonna have problems, but it's still the iPhone at the end of the day. It's the iPhone software level that we get. It's the Apple level type of software that we get in a car. Um, Driven a Bolt, driven Nissan Leaf. Don't even get me started with the Nissan Leaf, but good car regardless of their shit software. But nothing comes close to that Tesla experience of software.
Right.
And not even including range anxiety, like someone says as well.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
A couple of articles come out. I want to get your thoughts on quickly. Is number one,
Sure.
Indonesia. So we got rumors about Tesla Giga Indonesia coming out, and everyone in the comments, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this, whether it's true or false. Everyone says, "Oh, Indonesia, that's where the next Tesla Gigafactory is. It's going to happen." And then Elon replies to the tweet saying, "Hey, be careful with trusting these unnamed sources they're often wrong. And so Luhit Pandajatian, who has been leading the talks, sorry, I totally butchered that name, who has been leading the talks with Tesla, has declined to disclose further details, citing an NDA. Bloomberg News also reported that Indonesia talks include plans for production facilities and and to facilitate the company's supply chain, citing people familiar with the matter, aka people that don't exist. So,
ChatGPT.
what are your thoughts? Yes. What are your thoughts on this whole debacle, if you want to call it?
I would love it if Reuters is just now going on ChatGPT and just like saying, what if this were true? And then it's like, unnamed source.
Dude, what happened to the
God.
Reuters report of 495,000 cars to be delivered in Q4? That set the bar so high. Remember when that came out and everyone tried to eat it up? And
yeah.
And anyways, but yeah, continue.
Couldn't have been further from the truth, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah, this one's odd because the Indonesia talks have happened. Right. Exactly. It might be a battery thing, right? So maybe the context of the discussion is incorrect, where it's not necessarily like a manufacturing plant for cars. Maybe it's some sort of refining facility, or maybe it's a mining facility, right? So it depends what the context could be, but it's pretty. People know that it's common knowledge that Elon and Indonesia have had talks. So something's there. There's something there. Now Elon coming out and saying, "Hey, like, don't trust everything you read, especially if they're unnamed sources. Most things are incorrect." Okay, cool. Especially with Reuters, because Elon has had a thing with Reuters as of late, where Reuters has been quite unfair and sort of like in some situations, but then others they reported things that were end up coming true because Tesla China said no, but it ended up being right. Now, if Tesla China came out and said this is not true, then I would have said this is totally true, right? But because it's Elon coming out and saying, "Hey, don't trust everything that has unnamed sources," then that kind of puts it in a weird place. So I don't know. I mean, you got Indonesia, you got Mexico, you got Canada, you got the UK, you got all these like different rumors coming up. So some of this, I think some of this will be announced on Investor Day on March 1st.
Okay.
Some of these will be announced. Correct. I do think so. I had Nick on the channel, Nicholas Gibbs from Investing Against the Grain on Monday. And his big prediction, which he has 10% confidence for, is that they'll announce 3 different gigafactories on Investor Day.
On March 1st, right?
On March 1st. And I'm like, give me whatever you're having, bro. Hook me up. That sounds amazing. No, kidding. I love the guy, obviously. But
yeah, he's great.
That's one of the things, right? So what do you think?
Well, do you remember what you said on this channel on the last Friday Street Power Hour stream of the year?
Oh God, I say all kinds of shit.
Remember your closing remarks? Does anyone remember in the chat what?
Lower your expectations to 0.
If you said if your expectations are nothing, then everything will be great. So using that methodology, there's no way that we can project for 3 new factories to be had on March 1st.
Well done.
Am I the only one that thinks March 1st will be kind of a nothing burger at the end of it in terms of tangible takeaways? It'll just be kind of a love fest of, we appreciate our investors. This is our long-term growth, but we're not going to be actually announcing anything tangible because that's not what this is for. Am I the only one that kind of feels like that?
I could see that. I mean, I do think it's some sort of honestly, this is probably the first time ever that Tesla is putting together some sort of event specifically for damage control. I could see that because there's been a lot of investors have not been very happy with kind of the stuff that's been happening since Elon bought Twitter. A lot of confusion, a lot of noise, a lot of divisiveness. Right, the communities turning on each other, turning each other inside out. So this could be Tesla recognizing that it might need to step in and kind of refocus people on the long term. Be like, hey, this is why you're invested. Let's not forget why we love you and why we love your support, because this is what we're working towards, and just reminding you, hey, this is what we're working towards. So I could totally see that. But there's certain verbiage on there that just I can't help but get excited, because I don't listen to my own advice. It's like
Gen 3 platform,
capital. Yeah. Thinking about the future. Honestly, if I want to come out with a bullish but realistic expectation, if there's one thing I think would make me happy, but I wouldn't go any more past this, I think Master Plan Part 3. I think Master Plan Part 3 is a possibility for this meeting, but you don't think so?
No way, because I remember, what was it? Sorry, I don't want to be dismissive. I remember
please.
Elon making a comment though on Spaces 2 or 3, maybe a month or so ago. I forget which stream it was. I think it might have been the one where Emmett Peppers was on, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. But he said in one of these spaces not that long ago that he still has to write it. Or the way he referred to Master Plan Part 3, he says will be. And it immediately came off to me, oh, he hasn't actually written this thing yet. So,
Yeah, but it
and that
takes
was
how
not
long
that
does it
long
take
ago.
to write 1,000 words, bro? You
Master
know?
Plan Part, I mean, this is a
But
master
he
plan.
already
It's going to be
has
in the
it. No,
history
but he's
books.
already got it in his head. He has it in his head
Okay.
already. You
So
know,
he's going to
he's
use
just
Chat
physically.
GPT, pull it
Yeah,
up,
yeah,
throw in a couple of lines, and then just spit it
yeah.
out.
Write Master Plan Part 3 in the style of Elon Musk about Tesla's prospects for the next 10 years. We should do it right now. We should literally write Master Plan 3 right now.
Okay. I'll try pulling that up
Oh shit, we're
as you
actually doing
continue to
it.
talk. Try to log in. Yeah, continue
That's
talking.
funny. Yeah, but I could see why you're sort of hesitant on this, you know?
I sound
Let me
like
see.
such a pessimistic guy nowadays. I'm not even trying to be.
No,
I'm
you're
just at the point where
realistic.
it's like, no, by the way, I have a couple pessimistic friends, and they always say I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist, and I hate when they say that. So do not say that around here.
Listen, you're taking the last few weeks and months of data points and you're adjusting your outlook based on those data points. I mean, that seems like the smart thing to do. Now, what that's doing though is that it's giving you the opportunity to be surprised to the upside. You know,
That's
so
exactly it. Yeah.
yeah. So when the upside happens, it's gonna feel really good. Like just for your psyche, you're gonna feel great. You're gonna be like, holy shit, I'm so glad it
Um,
wasn't this thing, right?
what do you have to say about Tim's comment here? Timothy's comment. 4D chess. Elon's actually saying this for a negotiation, bargaining tactic,
I don't
essentially.
know. I don't know. Listen, I think Elon is brilliant. I think Elon is super, super smart. He's obviously 1,000 times more smart than I am. And he's a brilliant business mind, and he is ahead a lot of the times. But I think sometimes 4D chess gets confused for him flying by the seat of his pants. And I think Elon is very much somebody who flies by the seat of his pants
Really?
because
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what most really brilliant entrepreneurs do. Like I've been exposed to a lot
Right.
of very brilliant people while working at Tesla. And
Hmm.
and I've I've worked with great CEOs as well. My previous gig before Tesla, and super high quality, very smart, very wealthy, very well known people that know how to strategize. If you're moving
Hmm.
really fast, if you're moving extremely fast, it's really hard to 4D chess because for you to
Hmm.
4D chess, it implies that you kind of everything is static and you can very much predict where everything goes. Now, Elon, I think this is my opinion. I think Elon can do this in a fast moving environment much better than anybody else. 100% agreed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Tesla. 100%
Hmm.
agreed. But
Yeah.
sometimes it moves so damn fast that you just have to strap on and just see where it takes you. And I think that's where Elon is a lot of the time, especially when you have a lot of juggling. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
saying that he's incapable. I'm not saying that he has a low skill set. I think people that
Yeah.
really love Elon in that respect might take offense to this, but trust me, I'm not trying to dog on the guy. I'm just saying
Right. Right.
that sometimes it's
You
not
could pivot
4D
fast.
chess, but he can
You
pivot
know.
really fast, and that's what it is. It's just exactly. He's a
Yeah.
brilliant entrepreneur and a business leader.
Yeah.
But
It's
you're
true.
flying. You're flying.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess
Yeah.
when you're moving at that speed, you can't really plan too far or too far away in the
Right.
future.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got Chat GPT pulled up. What command should I give it? I have
For
write Elon
Tesla.
Musk's for Tesla,
Yeah.
but is it really for just Tesla? He talks about scale, but okay. So you write Elon
Yeah. Because
Musk's
it's gonna be.
mastermind part
Yeah.
3 for Tesla.
Yeah. All right, here we
All right,
go.
let's see
All
what it
right, Elon,
spits
I
out.
hope you're watching this. We're doing your
The
work
thing
for
is,
you.
doesn't Chat GPT only go back from 2020 and prior in terms of historical data?
Up through 2021. No,
There,
no, no,
look,
no.
I don't have any information. I'm gonna have to give it a different
No.
different
Let me
command.
let me give you this prompt. Okay?
Okay.
Write write the next master plan for Tesla based on the next 10 years uh of growth. I don't know, something like that.
Based on the
Uh
next 10 years, maybe someone in the chat.
Let me see. Write the next 10. Write the next master
Master
plan for Tesla based for the next 10 years. For the
for
next 10
the
years.
10 for the 10
Yeah.
for the next 10. All right, let's see. I'll take some suggestions in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Come on, OpenAI, you can do this.
I've been locked out of Chat GPT all week because it's like overloaded on whatever.
Yeah, me too. Son of a bitch. Okay, so we really need Elon.
No, here's the thing. I think we have to say, write a master plan for Tesla in for the next decade. Let's see what that. Oh wait, hold on. It's giving me one.
Oh,
however, here's a possible master plan. Okay, here it is.
All right.
Number 1, expand the EV product line to include a wider range of models at various price points. This could include a compact SUV.
No,
we
already did that.
Well, compact SUV. Yes, not a compact sedan.
That was master plan part
develop
2.
Develop
master plan part 2.
Wait, hold on. Invest in R&D, expand Tesla's presence and influence in the global market. It'd be so funny. It was like part 9, make a PR department.
Tell you what, it's got more pointers than Elon's, bro. This thing's going to work.
This is really good. Develop a comprehensive Tesla mobility service that includes ride
That was already
and car
master
sharing
plan part 2,
services.
though.
But how does it know this? It hasn't read it.
It has read master plan part 2, of course.
There's no way ChatGPT has read master plan part 2.
Ask it. What is Tesla's master plan part 2?
There's no way.
Dude, obviously it has. It came out in 2017.
I don't believe it.
Okay. You're doubting your AI overlords, bro.
But I just don't. Doesn't it pull from Twitter and Wikipedia? Is that not the only places it pulls from?
Look at this.
Okay, hold on. Master Plan Part 2 was written by Elon in July 2016 in a post. Holy shit, I'm wrong.
There you go.
I'm doubting everything.
Yeah.
Right. The next part. Let me see what it says after this. So it just basically regurgitated the last one.
The next part is very good.
Stefan says ChatGPT uses everything ever written. Unreal. I did not know that.
It crawls the entirety of the internet.
Okay, some prompts coming in the comments here. I'm gonna try this. Write the next part, and if that doesn't happen, I'll try one.
This is such a fun stream, by the way. I'm having a blast.
Beach says I need some fresh juju. I do have some in the living room, but yeah, I didn't.
Dude, you should just one of these days just spend the whole day just asking Chat GPT just random stuff. You know?
Are you assuming that I don't already do that during the day?
I guess I'm not. Just stream it though.
Okay, just on stream, you mean?
Yeah, just on stream.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
So I said write the next part. Tesla may have a master plan part 3. Okay, so hopefully this is different. Okay, so electric semi-trucks, buses, electric commercial vehicles, and various purposes such as cargo, delivery, transportation, logistics. Develop a comprehensive EV charging and battery swapping infrastructure. Look at that. Okay, Neo is jumping in the chat here. Invest in research and development of new tech, such as solid state battery. It's just throwing out all the buzzwords, right? Battery swap, solid state. Number 4, expanding the company's product line to include solar roofing, solar panel integrated EV charging stations, and energy efficient home appliances. That's an interesting one. Develop an online platform that allows Tesla to share their cars and make money when they're not. Okay, so robo-taxis.
7's fun.
Investing in the development and production of autonomous flying vehicles. eVTOLs is in the chat. Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas pops in here to add to the company's transportation solutions. I like that one.
That last one invalidates OpenAI immediately.
Oh yeah, this one does. Yeah, investing in R&D of tech such as hydrogen fuel cells to explore.
So what's the learning lesson here? So what's the learning lesson here? Is that not even AI can figure out what it's in Elon's brain. So we need Elon to figure this out. You know, we have proof.
Why hydrogen though? It's let's see. I bet you Bill Gates is not very happy with that.
this answer, dude.
Let's see if it can overrule its lord of Bill Gates here and talk about
That's
hydrogen
so
sucking.
funny, dude. It's thinking
Let's
about
see.
it.
Yeah, Martin says so. It doesn't work. So
Yes,
let's
it
see.
does.
Hydrogen fuel cells are a tech that converts. Yes, I know. Let's see. Some experts argue that hydrogen fuel cells have the potential to be cleaner. Oh, so Bill Gates is running this ship,
Yeah,
eh?
totally. I mean,
Um,
Microsoft is investing in OpenAI, you know?
some of the reasons why hydrogen is not considered a good option include. So here it's going to list out a bunch.
Oh,
You know what's funny? We did get that prompt of someone saying, "Explain to me why oil and gas is good," and it's like, "Sorry, I can't spit out reasons why." So it is to a degree already having a bias, politically speaking, right?
which is human created because somebody literally sat down and wrote that code to ensure it doesn't do that. This is AI
Mm,
safety, y'all. This is a perfect example of AI safety. That's why it gets really
mm,
weird with AI is because
yeah,
you could have biased human influence that can enable people like and that might force people to think that it's an unbiased answer that it totally
yeah.
isn't,
And you're assuming
right?
that it is, and it, yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. Ask
Yeah.
ChatGPT in the likelihood of Elon leaving. Who's the most likely candidate to be the next CEO
Yeah.
of Tesla?
It's going to be
If
probably
Elon,
JB Straubel. Bet you
yeah, I think
we
so.
should put
If
bets.
Elon,
Who do you think it's
okay,
going to be? Yeah, in the comments. Sorry, I'm like taking over your stream.
no, that's perfect. As I type this out, who will be?
What do you think will be ChatGPT's answer? Not what you
Yeah,
think. What do you
I'll
think will be
wait.
ChatGPT's answer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Not what you think. What
Yeah.
you think ChatGPT will throw out.
I'm going to
If Elon leaves
say,
Tesla, who will be the next CEO?
yeah. Who do you think it would? Bill Gates. What do you think the
I
answer is
think
going to be?
maybe Jerome Gillian, maybe JV Straubel makes sense. Um,
I'm going to
no,
say,
everyone's saying Tom Zhu. I don't think so.
it's going to say Zach Kirkhorn.
Was even what? So when did this pull this data from?
21. End of
2020,
2021.
and he became CFO 2019 or so. 28. Maybe
I
I'm
think
getting the
so.
dates wrong.
Yeah, it was around 2020 because he was there for the COVID
Mary.
years. Mary Barra. I hope so. God.
Okay.
Maybe Herbert
So
Dees.
this will be the last prompt. I promise, and we'll get back to
Okay. This
conversation.
is way too fun.
If Elon leaves Tesla, who will be the next Tesla CEO? I'm using the, like, it's not Ask Jeeves, but there was this other website growing up as a kid that we could like ask fake questions to, and it was a way that you could prompt it by hiding your answer, and you're showing a friend, and you're typing out the command, but you're secretly typing out what you want the answer to be, and you're hiding it by putting in quotes. If anyone knows what that website was, I forget what it is, but it's insane. If Elon Musk were to leave Tesla, it's not clear who would take over as CEO. The company's management team includes several experienced executives who'd step in. Here's some top. JV Straubel, number 1. Number 2, Jerome Gillian,
Nice.
president of automotive. 3, Zach Kirkone, you got it. And let's see if there's a 4th. Drew
Drew.
Baglino.
Yeah.
These are good answers for when it had their data set. This is good.
Yeah.
It's worth noting that in the event of a sudden departure of CEO, the board director typically appoints an interim CEO while they conduct a search. This is a really good answer. Like,
It's a legit like it's almost like an expert, right? Like when you're sometimes listening to like a space or a podcast and you have like a question of like, hey, what's the context here? Like help me
yeah,
understand this concept better. Cause you know, oftentimes when I listen to, and this is where as a YouTuber, I'm trying to get my head into the my viewership, right? It's like, okay, so when you watch me, what are you looking for? Like how can I help best, how can I best serve your needs when you're watching me for what you're looking for? And sometimes what I realize is that if I'm too technical or if it's something that doesn't have enough where I assume there is context, sometimes it gets lost because then you don't have the full context of what I'm talking about. And I'm very conscious
mm,
about this. But like
yeah,
imagine a tool like this that people can utilize as they're watching something that they can very quickly get the context behind it so that they can
mm,
understand why the answer is the answer. This is why
yeah.
stuff like this is so freaking
It's
powerful.
unreal. It's
Yeah.
unreal. Ekapov says, "How do we know we're not deep faking this live stream
Shut it
right now?"
down. Shut it down right now.
That's so true. I'm seeing so many deep fakes on YouTube Shorts. It's crazy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a whole channel to deep fake Jordan Peterson, and it basically shits on soccer players, and it's just Jordan Peterson talking shit about soccer players.
Well,
Anyways, we can move on. Now, this big article, I did want to get your thoughts lastly on this. Shout out to Tardy on
mm,
our awesome G Gang Discord about this. I'm not sure if you saw this. I wasn't really on Twitter, so I'm not sure if it was shared. But this is from Bloomberg, and it's an archive.ph link, so don't mind that. But Tesla China
No, it's
plant
fine.
expansion in doubt over Starlink concerns. Carmaker had planned to boost output to 2 million EVs a year. Upgrade is stalled by concerns from China's central government. I'll read just a little bit of it. An expansion of Tesla has been delayed, according to people familiar to the matter, over data concerns that risk putting a roadblock in the way of the U.S. car makers' ambitions to grow in China. Whether or not how legit these expansions were, I'm not sure, because we think we had Grace, the VP of Tesla China, come out and say that they're not really looking to expand, and that's not true. But some central government officials expressed concern over a U.S. company with connections to Elon's Internet from Space initiative, Starlink, having such a large presence in Asia, Asia's biggest economy. One of the people said, again, sources, always sources that are unnamed, while Tesla cars aren't equipped with Starlink equipment, which would allow users to bypass China's Great Firewall, Beijing has become increasingly concerned about the data security and social stability. What are your thoughts on this? Just
So
briefly, and you haven't read it.
it's such a weird, like, I mean, am I so okay? So there's a lot of things that play here, right? Number one, yeah, exactly. So that's number one. People familiar with the matter. Number two, Bloomberg. Uh, Traditionally, this doesn't seem to be the most fair publication towards Tesla. Number three, you know this too, Yasha, being a content creator and really in the media space. Your titles do a really good job of gaining sort of people's eyeballs. And this title, I got to give him a lot of credit. This is very clickbaity. Tesla China planned expansion in doubt over Starlink concerns. Way to connect two things together, bro. Like if you're an Elon Musk fan, you're clicking on this because you're like, holy shit, what happened? Right. So that's very fascinating. But China's government is authoritarian, and they are
Yeah.
and they are concerned. I mean, I think it's a legitimate concern that China would have. I think if I think about what they would be worried about, if what my knowledge about that government is correct, which is that they're very much focused around ensuring that their data stays right, and they don't have these like outside forces coming in and disrupting their society. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if the expansion of the Tesla plant, it's just such a weird thing because like what they're basically saying is like, because you own Starlink, Elon Musk, we're not going to let you expand your factory because of what you're doing with Starlink. How does that make any sense?
So I'm not sure about the direct comparison here to the expansion and Starlink, but I'm surprised that this hasn't been brought up more in the past, because I've always thought about this as being an ongoing risk for Tesla specifically because of Elon
Yeah,
owning Starlink. Apple, for example, doesn't really have this key man risk because it's not like Tim Cook. Say what you want about him or Apple executives, but they do a really good job of being the mediator of degree between the West and China and the
sure.
CCP, who pretty much run the economy right in China. Almost every big business is owned by partly by the central government. So what's interesting here is that I don't know about the expansion part directly tying to it, but I am curious about the Starlink connection to Tesla. That's always been one, because Starlink, of course, lets anyone. The whole point of Starlink is to democratize the internet, to make it accessible for everyone, to not have these firewalls. Although that might not be on the mission statement list of the goal of Starlink, but it allows people to do that, right? And what we've seen in Ukraine is proof of that. So I'm not sure if this is a Tesla specific issue. This is definitely an Elon concern, if you want to say, but I'm not even sure if it's. There's no way for us to know as regular citizens, not behind the scenes, not in the intelligence community. There's no way for us to confirm or deny any of this. So
Yeah,
you're right in that sense.
it should. Yeah, it's for me. It's like I just it's weird. It's weird that this is like an article, but I could see it. I mean, it does highlight some of the if it's true, right? If it's true, this is the big variable. If it's true, then there's two questions that come up. Is Tesla going to be able to overcome this hardship? Are they going to be able to like work it out with the Chinese government? And if they don't, what does that imply for the long-term prospects for Tesla? Because then that says that if China truly has a problem with Starlink and they're like, you know what, you're done expanding, I think you're good. Like you're
Yeah.
good with your expansion. Then that implies that over time, Tesla's Chinese business probably not going to be that big. So
Well,
what
that's
does
the
that mean?
concern, right?
What does
That's
that
the
mean?
concern. Um, Mimi says a BS article, in my opinion. China will not allow Starlink. I'm sure they can keep Starlink out of China as long as they want to. It has nothing to do with
Right.
Tesla. But all it takes is the hardware, right? The satellites are already for Starlink are already roaming globally, so connection is there in terms of or will be there all across the world eventually. It's just about hardware, and no doubt the government in China knows that there is no Starlink hardware going into Teslas. I'm sure they've checked of that already, and they probably continually check to see that there's no Starlink software going into Teslas, which is so far away from even reality at the moment of where Starlink is.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point here is that if they wanted to put leverage on Tesla, they would just if they wanted this gone, they could because they have leverage in the form of Tesla. That's the concern, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. So
So
if I were to like play, like, if I'm going to try to guess what's happening here, right? What
mhm,
probably happened, I'm probably 100% wrong. They're having a meeting over the expansion. They have the Chinese government has a bunch of bullet points, right? Yeah,
mhm,
Homer's correct. And then one of the bullet points was, hey, what are their plans with Starlink and Teslas? And they
yeah,
were talking about it. Elon's like, no, our plan is definitely is to maybe sometime down the road we're gonna have Teslas be able to work with Starlink, maybe 5-10 years down, but we'll definitely be respectful of your government's decisions
mm,
around having a technology like that. And they're like, okay, very good. So let's reconvene in a couple weeks and let's continue the discussions. Right. Thank you for that information. And then that happened, and somebody was at the meeting was like, yo, this happened. And then Bloomer's like,
mm,
oh, a conversation stalled. Like, yeah, this is going to be a problem. But something like that probably happened. It was
mm,
like very benign, and they're probably going to come back together again in 2 weeks and figure out how to move forward. To kind of
mhm.
maybe they need like something in paper from Elon that says, I promise not to put Starlink capability in Chinese made cars, something like that, right? And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
being deemed as stalled. And like the way this is framed is like, hey, Tesla has a big problem in China. But I don't think it's that. I just think China has a concern. Tesla answered. They'll reconvene and they'll figure out how to move forward. But I could be wrong.
mm. Yeah, I give them more credit to CCP than that. They're very like they're on top of what they want, and they will tell you. I'm pretty sure. Now the question I just wanted to say was with Twitter files going on, just not trying to throw this combo off too much off Tesla,
Haha.
but you got to think the
Mm.
Chinese government is very happy seeing what they're seeing with Twitter files. Do you not agree with that? I'm not trying to make a political statement here. I'm just saying
No, yeah.
they're looking at the action that's happening and the general chaos on Twitter regarding Twitter files on the establishment. And do you think they're happy or do you think they're sad about Twitter files coming out?
That's a very interesting question. I think there, again, this is conjecture in a
Yeah.
arena that I'm like not an expert in whatsoever. I would argue I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just trying to make sense of everything, right? So, um, I think Twitter files is interesting because I think from a political standpoint, China is probably happy that there is a larger percentage of the population that could be doubtful that the government is executing in the best interest of the people. And I've been in that,
Yeah.
personally speaking, very transparent. I don't generally trust anything or anybody, to be completely honest. I tend to just sit down and I do my own diligence, and that's how I move forward. So there are data sets coming out of Twitter that might enable more people to feel that way, and I don't see how that doesn't weaken the US government in some way.
Hmm.
However, it does strengthen the people. It strengthens the people if the information is correct and the people feel like they can do something with that information, right? It gives more power to the people. So it's like interesting because you have a like dichotomy. You have one side of it is like it's weakening their adversary or their competition, call it in the social stage, but at the same time, it's doing so in a way that's empowering the society for which China tries to have a very like strong grip around, right? And so I could see places where they would be happy and places where they would be sad. It's very complex. It's the world is a very complex place, and I think on the whole, honestly, on the whole, I would say China's probably slightly negative on the Twitter files because it does technically show that Elon is personally responsible for a tool that is not afraid to show the dirty aspects of government. That's my takeaway, and I don't know how China's happy about that. What do you think?
I think from my perspective, all it's done is not Twitter files specifically, but the general chaos of the world in the last little bit has all it's done is really divided us, in my opinion. Now,
Mm,
is the division and then eventual getting together going to happen? Hopefully. I mean, we can be optimistic, but I look at it like it's divided a lot of us, and that's why I like to come on and not really have any political agenda to talk about. I just want to hang out with everyone and talk about Tesla and stuff like that because I think we need more togetherness in our society.
sure.
But I think dividedness has definitely happened. And I think my personal opinion is I think they look at the entire Twitter files thing and they go, "This is great." Sow more seeds of confusion and doubt in democratic societies out there. This is awesome for us. And by the way, I should probably point out as well, a couple of years ago, this was a concern that was already fixed because, or not the Starlink specifically, but Tesla's providing data back to Tesla. And so what Tesla Shanghai had to do was have an or in country, I forget where they put the data center, but they had to build a data center specifically for China to address these concerns because the Teslas weren't allowed anywhere near military factories or because there's cameras all around the Tesla. It has internet access. It could send information back, and that was the concern back then. So this has kind of pseudo already been done, albeit not with Starlink before. And that's,
Hmm.
when you're doing so much epic stuff like Elon is, Starlink, Tesla, SpaceX, you have these government clearances. You definitely have to have some sort of private information or data that you can't share with others. And it opens up a Pandora box of like, what's the background incentives and what are we not seeing as regular people that are just reading the news? That definitely behind the scenes there's conversations having with people.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point here as well that, Martin brings up, and I'll bring it up here about BYD and China, right? And
Yeah.
actually I have an article for that as well, if I haven't thrown it away. Tesla China price cuts causing mass buyer deflection from BYD. And we're
Yeah. No one's talking
seeing,
about that.
and BYD is of course barely profitable, and now they're being
Yeah.
very competitive. Tesla's being very competitively priced
Yeah.
with BYD.
For sure. One quick thing I want to clear up before we move on. Mimi in the comments, I always respect and appreciate Mimi's comments. I think Farzad is exaggerating the importance of Elon. He would never publish Twitter files about China. That's not at all what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that seeing that person doing that just doesn't necessarily mean he would. It's just like there might be some hesitancy in saying like, okay, this person like is willing to do this, but he might be respectful of our society and how we run things, but it's still something that might go through their mind. I'm not saying that he would, right? And I just want to make sure I'm clear there, but I appreciate the sentiment. Yeah, 100% pricing power, right? This comes down to Shanghai. Shanghai is a facility that has the best margins, has had it historically the best margins in the entire Tesla network. They produce right now the cars at the cheapest cost per vehicle, and they have the best processes in place right now until Austin and Berlin hopefully get fully ramped up and they see the full benefit of that. They have affordable labor in comparison to places like the States and Europe, not versus Mexico, which is a whole different story. Very localized supply chain, so a lot of costs. The costs are very, very low, which allows them to have very high margins. Yeah, if Tesla decides we're going to run at the same margins as BYD, even without the compact car, why wouldn't something like this happen? It makes sense, right? If Tesla's running at 30% margins in China and BYD is running at 5% margins, that means that Tesla can offer up to 25% discount from their prices to line up with BYD at a class above. Some would argue at a class above. Now, there's two models there that are direct competitors to the Model Y and the Model 3 at least. I think the Hun, I forget the name of it.
Seal.
The Seal,
The
thank you.
Seal is one, right? Yeah.
That's the Model 3 competitor. Yeah. I think it's about right now, it's roughly 10% cheaper right now, the Seal. So if they really wanted to go head to head with the Seal, theoretically, from my conversations with people that have driven BYD, the Tesla is a superior product from quality, performance, cargo, user experience, charging network, all of that other stuff, right? Plus tech and software. If they decide to just go at the same price as BYD, I don't think BYD is able to fight back. They would have to eat their margins and figure out how to, make money somewhere. Maybe the government subsidizes them in some way. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this is not often talked about, and we'll see this happen in Q1. So we should see, if this is correct, Q1 should be the first point where we see, oh my God, look at the weekly insurance numbers. Actually, we don't have to wait until Q1 is over. There's weekly insurance numbers come out every week on Twitter. Track the Tesla, track BYD, see how they perform. If Tesla's up significantly and BYD is down significantly, one could say, well, the price cuts worked, and it's hurting BYD, and that's no good for BYD.
Do you know when we're getting those numbers? Do you know when we're getting those weekly numbers? Anyone know in the chat?
I think it's every Monday or Sunday evening. It's like sometime in the wee hours of the morning, because it's
okay.
I
think that'll be probably Moneyball on Twitter, I think, right? That post those. So we'll see. Yes. Yeah, because Q4 BYD really outperformed Tesla in terms of sales at the end of the year. So there was that, but some said it was COVID related, but who knows?
Yeah.
So a lot to talk about still as we move forward here it's only 12 days into the year. It feels like it's been a month with everything that's going on. But always great chatting with you, man. Always great.
Likewise.
Just debriefing with everyone and very ad hoc, of course. But that's the way it goes. You have to hit the bell, the notification bell, to be alerted when I make these random decisions. But I always appreciate you always being up to play ball. Thanks for coming on, man.
Of course, man. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you to the Juju Gang. Always great conversation in the comments. I appreciate everybody. Appreciate you. And yeah, man, let's see where it goes. We made it to the new year. It does seem like, fingers crossed, do keep your expectations at zero. But the last couple of weeks have been a little bit better, less noisy, a little bit more green in the stock if you follow that short term.
True.
So we'll see. We'll see where we go. Maybe we can build up some momentum, and hopefully we don't have a severe recession in 23. The EV IRA tax credit gets cleared up. We get some confirmation from China that, thank you, DRK. We get some numbers from China that the price cuts are working and that demand is truly not an issue. And then Tesla Energy is something we didn't talk about at all. That could be fun.
Go check out I encourage everyone to go check out Farzad's stream with Matt Smith from Good Soil that he did yesterday on Tesla Energy. It was like a 2-hour mega stream, and it's a good deep dive into Tesla Energy margins, revenue recognition, and kind of Matt's perspective as a former energy guy and an analyst now. Yes, definitely go check that out if you haven't already. Link for Farzad's channel is in the description. Energy is big, but I'm trying to, again, as DRK says, as you've been saying to me, keep your expectations low.
Yeah. The reason why I'm so optimistic is because I'm testing everybody on the thing that I said, because I don't listen to myself, obviously. So there you go.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's good to have optimism, man. And yes, so I'll be going live tomorrow as well. If you're listening to this, Power Hour Friday live stream will be happening tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific. Are you going live tomorrow morning or afternoon your time? What time
I'll be having my community forum at 11 a.m. with my community. We'll be going live
11 a.m.
Tesla,
Texas
Elon.
time.
Yes,
Central
sir.
time.
11 a.m. Central. So 9 o'clock Juju time.
Perfect. 9 o'clock Juju time. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Much love. Take care. And hopelessly optimistic says
that is so meta. I love it.
That's great. I love it. All right, guys. Take care, everyone. Peace out.
Bye, everybody.